Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanee and Clarky visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right. How are we?
Very well. How are you guys?
Yes, very well here too.
Yeah, good.
A little bit hung.
Oh.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, little. Yeah, you know.
And not been at work.
Yeah, we had some
That's
friends
not still from
come
New Year's
over,
Eve, is it?
And hours later, you know.
Tony and I tried out the new spa last night, and that turned out to be a bit of a pissy affair in the drunken sense.
Spas do that.
I'm glad it was the drunken sense.
Oh, goodness.
So, who are we? I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanee.
And I'm Clarky. And together we are
Trial
by
Bye.
Wine.
And what are we drinking today?
Well, as Stuart said, we're a little bit hungover, so we are on the Carla Classic, the coconut
Deirdre
sugar.
Chambers. What a coincidence.
What a coincidence.
What a coincidence.
Deirdre
Exactly.
Chambers. What a coincidence. All
Boom.
three of us are holding up. I'm
What's
holding
it?
up an almost empty 2-litre
Texas
bottle.
Beaujolais. No, what do they call it? Not Texas Beaujolais. What's Coca-Cola? There's some name that they've got for it.
Coca-Cola?
Is it Texas Beaujolais or American? I don't know. I'm thinking
don't
of
know.
something. It means
No idea. Mine, however, has a little dash of
Pirate juice in it.
bit of porridge juice, but
Goodness.
not my standard. My standard porridge juice is the spiced one, but I didn't
Right.
have any.
Schmitty, you've
so-
taken me back. That was my drink.
I know.
Why don't I
Bacardi
drink
and
it at all
Diet Coke.
anymore? Why don't I drink it? I don't
Because there's
think
something
of
wrong
it.
with you.
I've forgotten about it, to be perfectly honest.
It's a little bit tastier than a vodka, and so, but it's also a white spirit, so pretty.
Well, that suits me just
manageable in
fine, doesn't
calories,
it?
Yeah.
I would like to say, several months after my nasal operation, I think it's fair to say that I'm in a better drinking place than I've ever been.
Oh, that's
Maybe not ever
excellent
been,
news.
but it has definitely had a positive impact.
Excellent news. I'm going to give that a round
I
of
know.
applause.
I can still smell.
that you went through all that and didn't. Get
No,
any,
and I can still smell. So that has been quite a revelation. And you know what? I got some perfume for Christmas, which was a very symbolic thing. My brother-in-law asked me what I wanted. I said, you know what? I'd like some perfume. He said, well, I get you, because he normally buys me perfume, and he always buys me the same one because I haven't been able to smell what I've had for years.
Yeah.
And I said, no, do you know what? I can actually smell, and I've been into a shop and there's actually something else that I'd like. And so I asked him to buy it for me. Then it was only afterwards that I thought, I really, really like that smell. And I'd forgotten that I actually used to wear that as well, but I'd forgotten over, the 5+ years I haven't been able to smell at all, that I had. So there's a thing that I have where there's reactions to emails, smells and stuff. I know what I like. And then when it comes back and I go, gosh, I really like that. And then I think about it. I was like, yeah, you liked it 5 years ago as well. So my
Was it
sense of
the-
smell hasn't changed.
Was it the latest fragrance from Britney Spears?
Oh, no, Ariana Grande. So close, yes.
So close,
I love
yeah.
a fragrance from Wizard Pharmacy. That's
it was-
totally my cup of tea.
That was a 50-50.
I go in there and I go, do you know what, Britney or Ariana Grande? I thought, oh no, Ariana Grande for me, I think. High ponytail, that says speaks to me. Yeah, good call there, Clarky.
Last year or the year before, my sister gave me a bottle of, because I wear Juicy Couture track pants all the time, just because they were cheap on Catch of the Day or something. And she bought me a Juicy Couture perfume, and it has pride of place on the toilet as a toilet spray.
Air freshener.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Does she
Yeah,
know
I've
that?
got a couple
Yeah,
like
she
that.
does.
You always know there's some of those fragrances. I used to be obsessed with perfumes when I was, in my first job when I was at school or whatever else. But they were so rich in the 80s. There were Poison and Yves Saint
Oh,
Laurent,
yeah, they were
Paris
really-
and stuff. They were really
Yeah.
heavy,
Oh, I
heavy,
still like
decadent
Paris.
fragrances.
I love
Yeah.
Poison.
Yeah, but it's funny, like they take me straight back. But I remember I had them pride of place in my bedroom or whatever else. And some of them now, when they've been sort of designated to the
old.
pharmacy. And
Yeah.
another one I used to wear was like Davidoff Cool Water, and my mum still buys it for me occasionally. Oh,
I don't mind that for women.
but there's something about it. I used to love it. Now I'm like,
No,
oh.
okay.
When it gets to
little
the pharmacy,
upchuck face.
the moment's
yeah, okay.
past when they're selling it out of the
I had
pharmacy.
Davidoff Cool Water for women, and I thought that was all right. It's a bit
I used to
fresh.
wear it a lot.
Enough about perfumes. Clarky, do you have a story for us
Hi.
today? Hi.
Oh,
Yes, indeed, I do.
And diddly diddly do, Chanel.
Oh,
I
my
do.
lordy, yes, indeed, I date Janelle. So
I
I'm
always
going...
thought it was Chanel. I always say Chanel, but it's
Oh, well,
Chanel, is it?
It was
No,
Janelle and
Chanel.
Chanel.
Oh,
so
well,
there was,
Chanel. Oh, good.
yeah,
Chanel.
Because
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
he always says Chanel, and I'm always thinking Chanel, but whatever.
Yeah, no, so
Oh, it's both. So we're both right.
Chanel,
Cool.
it was Chanel's House of Beauty. So that was
That's it.
Magda.
Just look
Yeah.
for the big hairy legs with the whatever in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, the waxing strips between them. But Janelle was the one who
was
ran
like,
the show kind of thing.
got it.
Yeah.
Mark.
The
So-
journalist.
Yeah, that's it.
She had that
So
poise
Magda would
face.
always say,
Oh, my lordy, yes, indeed, I date Janelle.
right. So I'm going to tell you, I've gone with a local number
Oh,
Excellent.
this week. And when I say local, it's actually from Albury, which
Oh my
is
God, that local.
super local. Yeah, for us anyway. Not for you, Swanee, particularly. But,
that's
you know,
all right. But that's local.
I figure I've been pointing out some weird stories from other parts of the globe, and so it was time to do this one.
Was it harder?
It was very hard to find
Yeah.
information.
That's the struggle, isn't it? So I'd like to do
Yeah.
more stuff from home, but some of this stuff is it's difficult in terms of limited information.
Yeah, correct.
for you, though.
So it was definitely hard to find a lot of info, and I was piecing it together from a lot of different stories. But what I'm going to do is tell you the story. There's not a lot to actually what happened. And then we're going to go through everything that happened years and years and years after.
Okay.
Because when
It's one of those.
it's a murder, and when the murder goes unsolved,
Okay. Cold
it
case.
just
Yeah.
constantly repeats. And so,
Okay.
yeah, we'll go through some of that. So anyway, my sources are the Daily Mail UK, go figure,
Oh,
news.com.au, Sydney Morning Herald, abc.net.au, and the good old Canberra Times.
oh,
I think when the Daily Mail picks them up, it is just part of that affiliate news stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our story begins in October 1973. And this is the story of Bronwynne Richardson. So Bronwynne Richardson was a Corowa showgirl. So Corowa, for those of you who don't know, is just down the road. It's about half an hour from here. So along the Murray, there's a lot of towns that are more or less twin towns. There's a town on the Victorian side and a town on the New South Wales side. And so Rutherglen is the Victorian and Corowa is the
I'm a
New
bit
South
embarrassed. So the river is the border.
That's the
is
border
it?
of
Yes.
Yeah, so the southern
I didn't know
water,
that.
yeah, the southern water line is the border. So if you are in Victoria and you go and stand in the Murray,
You're in New South
you're
Wales.
in New South Wales.
Yeah.
Right, got it.
There you go. So, yeah, she was a Corowa showgirl described by her family as fun-loving and the belle of the ball. Earlier in the year, the 17-year-old had won a beauty contest at the Corowa Show, being crowned Miss Corowa Show Beauty Queen in the town which lies 50 kilometres west along the Murray River. So it was just after 7 p.m. on Friday.
West of what?
Albury.
Thank
Albury,
you.
darling.
Okay.
Yeah. It was just after 7 p.m. on Friday, October the 12th, when Bronwynne Richardson was on a footpath in Smollett Street in central Albury waiting for Charlie Kerr to give her a lift home following her shift working at Coles.
Coles New World in the day, probably.
Well, it could have been Coles New World,
I saw a
yes.
sign the other day that said it reminded me of that Coles New World.
A witness saw a car of 4 men pull up on Smollett Street
Ooh.
and Miss Richardson was dragged into the vehicle. He said Bronwynne had recognised the driver and he heard her say, "Oh, it's you," before her abduction.
Ugh.
So then I read a couple of different stories as to what happened. The first one, which has the most detail to it, said that she was driven to a reserve off a road about 6 kilometres west of Albury where she was raped and assaulted. She was then strangled and her body was dumped in the Murray River. 2 days later, on Sunday, October the 14th, her body was found at Horseshoe Lagoon on a walking trail in West Albury. And knowing what I know of that area, the Murray doesn't flow through Horseshoe Lagoon. So I don't know how
Was there
that...
a tributary?
No. So as I understand it, Horseshoe Lagoon is at Browns Plains, which is, Park? Gosh, on South Albury. But it's floodplains. Yeah, so I think it doesn't really...
Oh.
I'm not sure a body would flow from the Murray into Horseshoe Lagoon. But if it was flooded, then it could happen.
The lake is not related to the river?
Yeah, absolutely. So
The lake is huge.
yeah, it's massive. Yeah. So it's a reservoir that supplies all the water, and they use it. They use it to control the floods as well. So there's Dartmouth, which is even bigger, further
Dartmouth
up
is
into
further
the
up.
hills.
Yep, that's right.
And they use the two particularly to try to manage water storage, but also when it's going to flood, they'll just let heaps out. And so over the last, 6 months, there's been a lot of activity with the two. And
The
Dartmouth,
river is very...
So where's
I can't believe I'm going
Dartmouth?
to say. Very windy.
up in the hills. The river is very windy. Meandering is another word for it.
I was laughing because
It's
I was
a
like, I
big
cannot
river.
think of what I was going to say. It's crazy
have you been
busy,
up
isn't
there?
it? Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a huge river. Yeah. When it's
Yes.
when it's
Corowa.
full.
Is that where we were talking about?
Yeah.
It is where we were talking
Oh, I'm
about.
looking along where I am. Okay, I've just gone upriver and I've arrived at Corowa. I can see Rutherglen now. Right, got it.
All right.
Got it?
Right.
Okay.
I'm with you, right?
I think we can definitely edit some of that out. So the other theory that I read was just that she was actually murdered at Horseshoe Lagoon, which to me makes a bit more sense because, it's unlikely that a body would wash up there. So police investigated the murder but were unable to determine who was responsible. In 1975, a coronial inquest found that Miss Richardson died of strangulation and drowning. So now we jump forward to 1990, so 15 years later, and the family have no closure, obviously. A new investigation was launched after new evidence was found and 3 men were charged but were never convicted. Anyway, so none of them were convicted. So then 2008, so this is a timeline. It does jump back a little bit as things come out. But 2008, detectives refused to give up on the case and set up a strike force to reinvestigate the case. In 2010, police posted a $200,000 reward for information about the murder. So what's that, 37 years later?
Yeah, when you said 98, I was trying to, 2008, I was trying to work it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, God, long time.
So 2011,
25,
a second inquest was conducted. And in that inquest, they heard that Mr. Brown was acting strangely after the breakup with Bronwynne. So he was her ex, Jeffrey Charles Brown. A witness in the second inquest, Susan Marie Lyon, told the court she was going out with Jeffrey Charles Brown in 1977 when out of the blue he told her he was the ex-boyfriend of Bronwynne Richardson and had been interviewed by police over her murder. The court heard Mr. Brown told Miss Lyon he was interviewed by police because he was the only one who called her Bronnie and they could not prove anything, so he was let go. That's important because the witness who
said,
heard her,
it's you.
had heard
Him
them
call her Bronnie. Oh, God.
Also, there was another phone call that happened prior to her death, which was an anonymous death threat. It was a muffled voice over the phone telling her, Bronnie, you are going to die. Given that he was the only one that they knew that called her Bronnie, he was a bit of a suspect, but no evidence. The inquest also heard from Mr. Brown's former girlfriend, Wendy Sim, who claimed Mr. Brown had taken her to Horseshoe Lagoon where Bronwynne was killed and told her it was where he went to think. Another former girlfriend told the inquest she was concerned for her safety after their breakup. Yeah. Think about what he'd just done. The conclusion of that was that the coroner delivered an open finding into the death of Bronwynne and referred the matter to the Commissioner of Police for more investigation.
Can I ask a question, Clarky?
Yeah.
Was that originally or was that when it was revisited?
As in the open finding?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the 2011.
Okay. Gosh.
So, all those years later.
So what does an open finding mean? We just don't know the answers yet?
It means that they can't reach a conclusion, so they've got to go and do more investigation.
Okay.
So now in 2014, so 41 years later, police make a breakthrough and arrest a man who allegedly abducted, raped and killed a teenager. The man was Colin Michael Newey, 61, who lived in a country town just outside Adelaide. Police said fresh information gleaned from the coronial inquest in 2011 helped them build a strong enough case to make an arrest. At the time, it was the oldest homicide in New South Wales to have resulted in an arrest. So New South Wales Police Homicide Commander Detective Mark Willing Detective Inspector Mark Willing. Also, Detective Inspector Mick Willing said that Bronwynne's parents...
So his name again is?
Just fourth time lucky, Detective Inspector Mick Willing.
Right, okay.
Yes.
We're sure about that now?
I wasn't willing to get that name correct, but I did in the end.
I kept looking at him going...
He said that Bronwynne's parents, Noel and Stan Richardson, were distressed but relieved at the news someone had finally been arrested over their daughter's death. A 17-year-old girl lost her life under horrific circumstances, he said. The pain of murder lasts forever. He said the police believed one other man had allegedly been involved in the beauty queen's death, but the person was now dead. There were no other persons of interest in the case apart from Mr. Newey, who will shortly be charged, and I shouldn't have read it like that because that was in 2014.
Shortly, and in 2022.
who will shortly 8 years ago.
Oh, yes, the wheels of justice move quickly.
Goodness me, damn cut and paste. Police allege Mr. Newey initiated his own undoing after watching a television program in his hometown of Murray Bridge. The program linked notorious Victorian pedophile Mr. Stink to the murder of Mr. Newey's distant cousin on October the 9th, 1989.
Can I ask a question? Was Mr. Stinky linked with, I don't think he was, Josephine Chan? Remember Josephine Chan was this really famous young girl who was taken and murdered?
Yeah, she wasn't famous at the time. She was famous after.
It's a famous case. It's a famous case, yeah.
Yes.
But now I say it, I think Josephine Chan, the theory of that is lots of other underworld crime type people, not Mr. Stinky.
Gang-related.
But I think it was around the same time as Mr. Stinky. That's why
I think you're right.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, he
And Swanee's looking disturbed that I even know that. You don't. Well, you're not
Mr.
Victorian.
Stinky rings a bell,
He was
but,
Victorian, wasn't he, Mr. Stinky?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've heard it.
he was
but
our
I can't-
boogeyman. When I was growing up, he was our
Oh,
boogeyman.
I don't doubt it with a name like that.
Yeah, I know, Mr.
Because he used to, if I'm not wrong, he used to break into people's places and he stank. He had really bad BO and he was a rapist and a pedophile or something. And so that's why he got called Mr. Stinky. Yeah.
So the following day, Mr. Newey allegedly so this is after the TV program aired, Mr. Newey allegedly made a chilling phone call to his local police station to gloat that he was somehow involved in Bronwynne's death. And
After all that time.
Yeah. And that the program he viewed the day before was incorrect.
It's a bit like BTK. No, I'm not dead. I'm still here and I'm just going to send you a floppy.
That is so wrong.
If you don't mind, my work should be respected, thank you. Yeah. God.
Following further investigations by the New South Wales Police's Unsolved Homicide Squad, he was charged in July 2014, but granted bail 4 months later after questions were raised about whether the Crown could prove he had committed any acts or whether he was present at the time of Bronwynne's death. There was also doubt about whether the accused was the person who had phoned police and made the admission. So, he was granted bail with the judge labelling the case against him not very strong.
So is that sort of suggesting he could have just been one of these people, nutjobs, who rings up and says, I did it, even though they didn't? Yeah,
well, I guess, there's no proof that it was him. So if someone has called up saying it's him, then...
Oh, I see what you mean.
No
so
proof.
Someone just said, I'm X person and I
Correct.
did this, and there's no evidence that it was him. Right, okay.
Well, so there's not enough evidence to prove that it was him, and he's obviously not admitting to it. So Justice Richard Button remarks during an application that Newey could have been considered for release on bail by the police, saying he is an elderly sick man. He added it was unusual for an arrest coming 40 years after the crime to be without scientific evidence. So he was arrested, no evidence other than
it's all
the alleged phone call.
Yeah.
Correct. The Supreme Court heard the case against Newey is built around phone calls, most notably a call made to the Murray Bridge police station. There's real dispute whether the Crown can prove the accusation was the person or one of the persons who committed those acts, and so he had to be released. And the charges were dropped only weeks before he was due to face court. So if you think about what that does for the family, they're obviously left devastated because, again, they get their hopes up and go, right, now we've got someone, he's confessed to it, and here we are.
Surprise!
And
no, I didn't do it.
Yeah, correct.
Gotcha.
And so Mrs. Richardson's sister, Fiona Hume, at the time said, this has been the hardest blow of all. We've waited 40 years and now we've got nowhere. The police have done their job. We were 3 weeks out from hearing the evidence in court. Pretty traumatic, where you kind of go, all right, let's all get ready and go.
But they would have only dropped it if they didn't think that they could actually get a firm prosecution for it.
Yeah, so the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution said that, in its view, there was no reasonable prospect of conviction. But interesting that it got that far. And I think from the family's perspective, they're not annoyed at the police at all, but, it probably shouldn't have got that far.
Yeah, it's disgusting. They would have hoped that it would have gone further.
And I guess it just highlights the complexity of trying to solve cold cases. And so they were saying that police sometimes forward a brief of evidence to the ODPP, which is the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, for advice before charges are laid. That did not happen in this instance. Fiona Hume said the case was always going to be complex, but that the family were confident in the work done by New South Wales Police's Unsolved Homicide Squad. She said the evidence should have at least gone to the committal hearing. And then she says, which I don't necessarily agree with, police wouldn't have charged him unless there was sufficient evidence to do so. The detectives we've spoken to are as mortified as we are. Now we fast forward to 2019. So in June 2019, a $1 million reward for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for her death was announced. And in July...
Could you just repeat that, though, with the appropriate... Not Wayne's World. What is it? $1 million. Yeah.
Yes. In June 2019, $1 million reward.
Sort of a Mike Myers there.
$1 billion gazillion dollars.
That's right, yes.
And then in July 2019, a 2-part television investigation of the crime Murders, Lies and Alibis, the Beauty Queen Killers, unearthed contradictory evidence implicating 2 men in the murder in 2 different scenarios.
People. Yeah, okay.
Both men have been previously arrested for the crime. So, who are the men? I hear you ask.
I did ask that in my head. Who are the men?
Oh, my God.
Who are the men?
So the first one is Jeffrey Charles Brown, who was Bronwynne's boyfriend up until about 18 months.
Every time you say his name, I keep wanting to say James Brown, but that's not James Brown. But anyway.
It's also not. But Jeffrey Charles Brown is a little bit more Charlie Brown than James Brown.
Yeah.
So on the night of Bronwynne's murder, Mr. Brown told police he was at the Waller Hotel and then the Burrum Buttock pub. Witnesses placed Mr. Brown in both locations at 6:15 p.m. and 8:10 p.m. But an inquest into 2011 heard there was sufficient time for him to get to Albury from Waller and back to Burrum Buttock and still be involved in Bronwynne's death.
But you'd be busy, wouldn't you, unless you're setting yourself up for an alibi? Like to do all this driving, anyway.
You'd be busy because you're setting yourself up for
an alibi. Yeah, that's right. Because otherwise it's like, why would you do all that unless you were like, I've got to be seen by lots of other people?
I can't dilly-dally. I've got to...
Sorry, I've got to get this over with quick because I've got to get back and then everyone's going to know I'm there. Yeah.
I don't know why you would want to have a drink in Burrum Buttock and then have a drink at Waller.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, why wouldn't you just stay at the same pub?
Unless you want to be different or seen somewhere or away from
why
the
wouldn't
place.
you just stay at the same pub? Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So in the Murder, Lies and Alibis TV show, 2 of Bronwynne's sisters and her mother, Noelle, say a police identikit released after the murder resembled Mr. Brown and claimed he was stalking Bronwynne and making threatening phone calls. So that's the first man. The second man suspected of the murder was Colin Michael Newey, who we spoke about, Bronwynne's second cousin. He has a record of theft, burglary, assault, arson, breaching bail, and drug manufacturing.
Can I ask a question? What was the connection? What was the connection? Yeah, he's an ass. But what was the connection with Mr. Stinky?
Just that it had been, let me find it, linked to
some of Mr. Stinky's victims, or
scrolling.
I can't even remember if they caught Mr. Stinky either.
I don't think they did.
No.
The program linked notorious Victorian pedophile Mr. Stinky to the murder of Mr. Newey's distant cousin on October the 9th.
Right. So okay. Right.
They also reported that Harry Poitevin, who was in jail with Miss
Poiter,
we'll call him Poiter from this point forward, who was in jail with Mr. Newey, told police Mr. Newey knew a lot about the murder.
Do you know who Pointer is, Carla?
No, Poito, I
Yeah,
do, but Poito is like for Poitevin. That's so. If you're saying Peter, that's
No. Yeah,
Pointer,
you're
Pointer.
right. You're right. I mean,
Eric Banner, aren't you?
Eric Banner's famous.
Yeah.
I don't care
Pointer.
what else
That's the
he did in
Peter,
his
not
career,
Poito.
but he was Pointer at the beginning of his
Pointer,
career,
yeah,
and that's what we
correct.
remember him for. Yep, go on.
Yeah, I know.
Correct.
Even though he became a Hollywood star.
Yes, Pointer went a long way. So this Pointer was in jail with Mr. Newey.
What was Mr. Newey in jail for? Do we know?
He had a record of theft, burglary, assault, arson, breaching bail, and drug manufacturing.
That was him, right? So
That was
yes,
him.
he'd been
Busy.
busy.
Yeah,
Busy boy.
Yeah.
Industrious chap. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Get a real job. The program.
Just what do you mean? That'll keep you busy.
Doesn't pay as well.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
It would. The program also revealed Billy Flack, a childhood friend of Mr. Newey, said he had a strange obsession with Bronwynne and had said, and you'll love this, I wouldn't mind getting onto that. I wouldn't mind doing that.
Oh. And by your love, you mean hate. Yeah.
Yeah,
quite
correct.
right. Quite right.
Yeah, what a love. I wouldn't mind getting onto that.
I wouldn't mind getting on that. Oh, yeah. Oh, do that one. Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly
yuck.
in that voice too.
Oh.
Of course, Mr. Newey denied the claims, and
Me?
he said,
Never.
I never such thing.
Spoken about a person like that. I would never objectify a woman like that.
I'm sure that's just how Mr. Newey
I've never been
sounds.
so insulted.
Come
in my
on,
life.
Leonard, we're leaving. He also said, and I guess this is deflection, Bronwynne was a bit of a tarty type.
Oh.
So no one else said that.
How old was she when she disappeared? 17?
17. You know,
Yeah,
you know
pissed
those
off.
17-year-old tarts who become beauty
Who are
queens
just
in Corowa.
loved by their families and a
Yeah,
delightful
correct.
person who, have their whole lives ahead of them. Yeah, tarty types. Shut up.
Yeah.
You shut up, you stupid man.
Shut up, you stink.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Newey initially denied seeing Bronwynne the week of her murder, but later said he had seen her that day around midday. In a previous police interview, he said he saw her at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. on the day of her abduction. He
And
said
then
he was
at 10 o'clock at night when I abducted her and raped her and killed her. Yep.
pants on fire. He said he was at a weekend army event the night of the murder, but his brother Peter denied this.
A weekend army event. What was he, a reservist?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of army up here, so
Okay.
yeah,
said.
it would make sense.
Right. That's helpful to know. Otherwise, it's a bit random.
Yes, so very good that you asked that question. Okay. Peter said Colin was meant to pick him up from hospital on October the 12th, but didn't turn up. The thing that gets me is where he was that day she went missing. What was he doing, Peter said.
He was killing her.
Sounds like it.
Pointer. No, the other different Pointer.
Different Pointer. Colin Newey did not attend Bronwynne's funeral either.
Was it, should he have?
Cousin.
Well, yes.
Oh, it's a cousin,
So,
right.
yeah. So not necessarily, but I think you could probably reasonably go...
This is a big deal for the town, or yeah.
I don't know. It's not like you probably would have had a hell of a lot else going on. Maybe,
another army
cousin.
event.
Yeah.
Was he her cousin? Did I miss that?
Mhm.
He was.
You did miss that,
Okay, right.
yes.
Sorry. Yeah. Get off the Bacardi
Yeah.
now. Note to self.
So he was her second cousin. No, I think up the dose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. No, I missed that. Sorry. I knew that because you said earlier about Mrs. Stinky, it was related by a second cousin or something. But okay. All right.
So her sister Fiona Hume believes Colin was present at the murder. When he became the number one suspect, every piece of the puzzle fitted together. So we'll go back to the phone call that was made from Murray Bridge. In 1989, the day after a television show on Bronwynne's death aired, an anonymous man called police from a phone booth in Murray Bridge and claimed he and 3 other men were present during the murder.
Clarky, where's Murray Bridge?
South Australia.
It is in South Australia, so it's not
Yeah.
nearby.
No, because Newey
No, I was
is the
just
South
checking.
Australian,
Yeah.
isn't he? Who?
Yes, yeah. I was
And
just checking
South
it. She did
Australia
say
is
that
a hell of
some
a
time
long
ago.
way away from what we're talking. Yeah.
Correct.
That's what I just wanted to check.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're not in the. It was because you were Murray and Bridge and nearby. I just wanted to be clear that
Because
it's
the
nowhere
Murray
near
runs from
through
Adelaide.
Yeah.
Oh, not Adelaide. Sorry, South Australia. Yeah.
Runs into.
Yeah. So where he's
Yeah.
from, is he on the Murray?
Murray Bridge is on the Murray, I
Right.
believe.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so from the phone call, police identified 4 suspects: Jeffrey Brownie Brown, Kevin Puppy Newman.
Are these real names? You're making this shit up.
100%.
Kevin Puppy Newman and Jeffrey
Yeah,
Murray
Puppies
Brown.
is Jeffrey Brownie Brown.
Brown.
So it's Jeffrey Charlie Brown.
Brownie puppy.
But Brownie is Jeffrey Brown's nickname. Puppy is Kevin Newman's nickname. There's Mad Max Martin, who is really just Max Martin,
just
but
say,
his nickname was Mad.
I saw Mad Max recently. It's a shithouse film. What was the fuss about that?
Shut
It's
up.
terrible.
It was old. Long time
So
ago.
Yeah, it was a long
violent
time
and
ago.
so awful. Anyway.
Yeah. And the 4th suspect was Ross Eames.
Oh, does he not
It was
have a nickname? He did it.
No.
He doesn't have a nickname.
Well, see, I think that there's every chance that he actually wasn't involved.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because the person calling said that he and 3 other men were present during
That's
the murder.
right. There were 4 people there, yeah?
Yeah. Remember we did that Super Schmitty, Courageous Kazi and Paul?
Yeah. He's the
This,
and
this
Paul.
feels this feels a little bit like his. Yeah, I don't have a nickname. Funny. So it was claimed that Max Martin was a pedophile and rapist who was released from jail on October the 12th. In 1990, he was questioned by police but denied being in Albury. After his death in 1995, it was discovered he had, in fact, taken the train to Albury.
In 1995, did you say?
After
died.
his death in 1995,
So
it was discovered.
22 years after this happened, they finally worked that out.
It's incredible that they can work that stuff out, but I guess
22 years later, but not at the time.
Yeah, but understand his name came up as a result of the phone call in 1989.
Okay, right. Okay, fair enough.
And so that
he
sort
wasn't
of stuff,
implicated
there's
prior.
And this is
Okay.
this is the complexity of the whole thing, that new things surface, then you got to go back and try to make sense of it all. And I guess because he'd said he wasn't in Albury, that probably threw them for a while as well.
Yep. And he probably thought they wouldn't be able to track him down.
Correct.
Okay.
And at least until he died. Mr.
After
Newey
that,
said
when they were cleaning his house out, they found the receipt
Yeah,
for the
they
train
found it.
ticket. Yeah.
I
Stub
wonder
for the
if
train
that's how
ticket.
they actually. Yeah, I wonder if that's how they found it. Mr. Newey said he and Martin then had lunch at the Coles cafeteria and saw Bronwynne working. Her sister Fiona said they knew what time she was leaving work. So you can kind of start to piece together from that. Mr. Newey said Martin had that shiftiness in him. He sort of looked evil. We've all had friends like that.
Yeah, that
you know.
doesn't make you evil.
I can't accuse them of murder, but, you may have suspected it. Also, Len Pendrick, who was friends with Martin's brother, Terry, claimed Terry told him Max had confessed. Mr. Eames?
I like the way you pause because you expect us to respond to that, and I'm like, I don't even know who
I'm
Max
giving-
I'm still
is.
trying to work through it. I'm still thinking about Len. I love that name, Len.
Len Pendrick.
Len
Yeah.
Pendrick.
Pendrick, yeah.
A mate of your grandfather's, old Len Pendrick.
Good old Len. I was drinking at
Lenny.
the Burrum Buttock pub with
I was at
Len.
Walla with Len.
So who was Max?
So I have
Sorry.
thrown a lot of names in. So Max Martin was Mad Max.
Oh, Mad Max Martin. Right. Got him.
And it was claimed that he was a pedophile and rapist. So he's the one who was released on the 12th of October, and it was later determined that he caught the train up to Albury on the day of his release.
Oh, he's the one. Right. Okay.
Correct.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So
From where? Do we know where he caught it up from? From Melbourne. I don't know.
probably from Melbourne, but I don't really know.
okay.
But he
Okay.
was he in Adelaide? Not Adelaide, South Australia as well.
No,
There's a lot of travel in this.
there is, particularly for the 70s.
Absolutely. Like, who gets a train to go? Well,
And
I mean, I'm not a
All over
rapist
the
and a murderer, but
countryside.
what are we doing next week? I don't know. I think I'll just get the train up to Albury and
I'm getting
rape and murder
released, so I'm
someone.
going to
And go
go
for
up
lunch
to
at Coles.
Coles Cafe. Yeah.
Yeah,
My first meal of
Do you know what I
freedom.
mean? Like, it feels weird, but
Yeah.
okay, all right.
It's a little bit like, you know those cups where you got the ball underneath and then they all get mixed up and you've got to
Yeah.
keep your eye on the cup that's got the ball in it?
Yes, that's a bit like that.
Trying to
Yes,
work out
yes.
who the
It's-
names are.
Mad Max.
Yes, so he had the shiftiness in him and he sort of
The
looked
shiftiness
evil.
in him, I love it.
Yeah.
I've got the shiftiness in me. I've got the shiftiness in me. I've got the shiftiness in me.
And there is the musical interlude.
Yes. Oh.
So Mr. Eames, who doesn't have a nickname,
Okay, and
said,
Paul.
Boring.
said he and Newman left and he did not know if Mr. Brown or Martin killed her. He also said Mr. Newey was not involved. Mr. Brown claims Mr. Eames tried to frame him.
Right.
Are we
They're
connecting
all,
those dots?
Were they all in the car together?
they all did it.
It feels a little bit like
They
it
all
was.
did it.
It wasn't me. You know the Shaggy
Yeah,
song.
no, that
Shaggy.
wasn't me.
Yeah, it was him.
Sorry, shagging on the what is it?
On the
Horseshoe
bathroom
Lagoon.
floor. It wasn't me. Yeah.
It wasn't.
It wasn't me. I saw
Yeah.
at Cole's Cafe. It wasn't me.
I got a treat. It wasn't me.
I went to Walla. It wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
Went to, what was it, the Man Bucker? What was it called? the other place?
Buttock.
I went to Barabuttock.
It
It
wasn't
wasn't
me.
me.
That's really hard to work into a song.
I like to think
Barabuttock.
at Horseshoe Lagoon. It wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
And all of these places have got far too many consonants and vowels to be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not working.
Yeah. Right. So Mr. Brown did not participate in murder, lies, and alibis, and was filmed telling the crew to go away, saying, "I've had 46 years of shit."
What a load of old
Oh,
shit.
shit.
Now,
Which, by the way, up at Ilden, I waited for the fireworks. It got to midnight, nothing. And I turned to Hub and said, what a load of old shit.
shit. Were they just running late, or they didn't do anything?
I didn't do anything. And everyone went to bed. And I was like, what a load of old shit.
Come on, Leonard.
Where
We're going home. We're out of here. Yes.
So
Anyway.
just give that some consideration for your sentence, because if he didn't do it and he wasn't involved, it would be horrible to get hounded like that. But if he did do it, I'm okay with him getting 46
He was
years
involved.
of shit.
I think he was involved.
You know,
anyway.
Cop your
I
46
think all
years
four
of
of them were
shit.
involved in some way. Yeah. Oh, you poor thing. You're
Now,
just
of
a
course,
victim.
just so that I can continue to add another name,
Who else
we-
has been implicated?
well, to make it easy for you, I'll call them Witness X, who the program claimed was a police informant, said it was Mr. Newey that had made the anonymous phone call to police from Murray Bridge, and that they knew because they were with him when he did it. So if you come back to...
Yep, I did it, but no, I didn't. I didn't do nothing. That got thrown out because there wasn't enough evidence.
Correct.
All that. Yeah.
Yeah. The program speculated Mr. Newey could have pretended to be Mr. Eames on the call to point police away from him. Both Mr. Eames and Mr. Newey lived in Murray Bridge.
But to be fair, he didn't have to make the phone call at all. So, I'm pointing someone away from me, but I didn't actually have to involve myself at all.
But also, if he was going to try to prove that the show was wrong in 1989, make the phone call to prove it, but say it's someone else.
Or just say nothing. Okay, all right.
No, he can't say nothing because it was wrong. Mr. Newey took a polygraph test and was asked if he called Murray Bridge Police and if he caused or was present at Bronwynne's death. His denials were deemed truthful. Also, polygraphs are not reliable enough to be evidence in
they're
any
not
New South
evidence.
Wales
Yeah,
court.
yeah. Or anywhere.
Carla, in answer to your question, Colin Newey died in 2019.
Right.
So now we jump to 2021 and a third inquest commences. The coronial inquest heard that there is little chance of anyone being prosecuted over her death because the three key suspects are dead. Counsel assisting Sally Dowling said Bronwynne was violently abducted, brutally, physically and sexually assaulted after she was snatched from an Albury street in October 1973. The reality is that her family has been living with the heartbreak and uncertainty about how she died and who is responsible. There is a strong possibility that there will be insufficient evidence for Your Honour to reach a finding. Documents have been lost, exhibits have been lost, and witnesses have passed away. The third inquest... Lost. Yeah.
God, all right.
The third inquest was called following additional information that police said changed their focus since the 2011 inquest. So in the 2021 inquest, 3 suspects were named. Bronwyn's second cousin, Colin Newey, remains the principal suspect, according to investigators. During the first day of the inquest, Miss Dowling told the court Mr. Newey was a career criminal with a history of sexual and physical violence toward women. The court heard the alibi Mr. Newey consistently returned to over the years had been conclusively disproved. He had told investigators he had been at an army camp the weekend Bronwyn was abducted. He gave different version of the weekend on which she died and admitted to being in Smollett Street between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. and seeing her. Convicted sex offender Max Martin, MAD, who had been released from prison on the morning of Bronwyn's death, was also suspected to have been involved. He died in 1995. And a third man, Kevin Newman, who investigators say may have been involved in the crime to a lesser extent, is also dead.
Do we know what killed them all? Like old age or
The ghost of...
no,
Chicken.
old age? Like, did they die? Did they live to a ripe old age?
Yeah, no.
or-
So none of them, I think, were particularly young,
Okay.
and so I think it is more that kind of old age. Also, bear in mind that this is 50 years almost after. So
Hey,
if they were
49.
driving age,
49.
yeah, don't get
I'm
too
only
carried
correcting
away.
you because I'm 49 next year and this happened the year before me, so yeah.
Yeah. So the inquest heard 2 anonymous phone calls made to South Australian police in 1989 had led the focus of the investigation toward 4 men, Max Martin, Ross Eames, Jeff Brown and Kevin Newman. Investigators said they now believed Mr. Newey made the calls. Since 2011, it's become apparent that 2 anonymous phone calls were designed to and succeeded in turning police attention towards those men. So that's not a bad thing. Maybe there was something in the show that made him think that they were going to catch him, and that's why he had to ring. Police initially thought the calls were made by Mr. Eames, who was 14 years old at the time, but that was ruled out. The caller named Jeff Brown and Max Martin as being responsible and also stated he and Kevin Newman were in the car when Bronwyn was abducted and were present in her death. Investigators have since ruled out any involvement from Ross Eames and Jeffrey Brown, who was Bronwyn's former boyfriend. So we knew that Ross Eames wasn't part of it because he didn't have a nickname.
And Paul.
And Paul, yes. So then there's also a pub confession. I'm not sure if it was the Bar and Buttock pub, Swanee.
Is this like the pub test?
Yeah,
where people
similar.
say, if it doesn't stand up to a pub test, then you
Exactly.
shouldn't do it. Yeah.
What is the pub test?
It's
Well,
it's where something happens, and if you're in a pub, correct me if I'm wrong, Clarky, but and you're a pub, you go, I'm blah blah blah, and everyone goes, that's bullshit. That's failing the pub test.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
good.
it's a political term. So if the politicians are saying,
Okay, so you can understand it and get it by at the pub.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm not supposed to have dual citizenship, but
I didn't know that was a
actually-
political term.
Yeah. So I
Is it
did
really?
have. Well, that's how it gets used a lot.
I feel
where
like
they
it's
go,
just an Aussie term, but
it wouldn't
okay.
pass the pub test, and so the politicians should know better because
What are you drinking, Schmitty?
Nothing. Why?
I saw a can. What is that?
That's what I had earlier. That's what I had to wee out. It's a mother.
oh,
Zero
Oh my god,
Have you
that
just-
looks horrendous.
have you just
Every
turned into an
morning-
18-year-old boy?
I
You
have
cannot be drinking that and wearing Tom Ford or Joe Malone. You should
Every
have
morning.
Britney Spears
I must
body
admit,
spray on with that.
It's normally a V. It's normally a
Impulse.
V or a Red Bull. But
Impulse.
Yeah.
no. As part of my diet regime, I have an energy drink in the morning, and that's how I get myself through to evening before I have dinner, as in an actual meal. Yeah. Anyway, let's. We digress. Move on.
We digress. Sorry, I just had to stop you there.
Let's not
Mother.
prosecute me and my
Me.
energy drinks thing.
I'd rather you don't lose weight than drink that stuff. You've crossed a line.
Could you at least put it in a brown paper bag to drink out of it so you have to see it? I'd rather it be left to our imagination.
Also,
Than to
she
be-
could just put it in a glass.
Mother.
Mother, yeah, I'm drinking mother. There you go. Perfect. No problem.
I don't have a brown paper bag. I just had a box.
It was a
I
brown
just
box, though.
Post Christmas box for you. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a condition. Now, ma'am, how can I help you today? Well, doctor, I seem to have post-Christmas box. Actually, it'd be more like, I've got this awkward thing going on downstairs. Oh, let me take a look. Oh, I know what that is. That's post-Christmas
Just
box.
post-Christmas box. Yeah,
Ah,
that's right.
You're the fourth one today.
Catch of the day box. Yeah,
It'll be
sorry.
gone by New Year's.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have a brown paper bag. Anyway. All right. So
Right. So there was a pub
back to the
confession.
seriousness of the pub confession, which
Yes.
may or may not stand up to the pub.
Yes.
rules,
And so
yeah.
the pub confession starts with a witness who cannot be named. So I'm wondering if he's
So also bullshit. Right?
Voldemort. Could be.
Or is he the police informant?
Oh, it could be witness X.
Yeah.
But it could be witness Y. I don't know whether they're the same or not because you can't name them.
Why would he?
But it's funny that witness X could be given a name witness X, but this one cannot be named. So I think he's Voldemort.
I think you're right. Yep.
Yeah. Right. So a witness who cannot be named told the inquest he was drinking in a bar in the Albury region in the 1980s when he overheard two men discussing Bronwynne's death. I heard Bronwynne's name mentioned, he said, because the name is pretty synonymous to the area and my ears pricked up. I only knew about it through the media. I didn't know her. Then I heard him say that he was involved. He told the other guy that he was involved with it and then proceeded to say what had occurred. He said the man...
I was involved with Bronwynne's murder.
Correct. That's exactly what he said, word for word.
Exactly. I was involved with Bronwynne's murder.
Now you're getting the picture right as well.
I feel like everyone in the area is involved at this point in time.
Yeah.
Well, it's only... So we do say Albury Wodonga has 2 degrees of separation. So you either know someone or you know someone who knows someone. So,
Okay.
yeah. And
What
if
about
you
people
ever...
who've moved into the area? How are you going with that? You're pretty
Well,
good at it?
yeah, so you
No, but is it
buy...
that, yeah?
You buy stuff on Marketplace and
Right.
or sell stuff, and it will say, friend of blah blah blah, who's actually a friend of yours.
On Facebook.
Oh,
So,
wow. Oh,
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a real thing,
Okay. All right. So
right?
I was involved
yes.
in this murder.
No, he
in
heard,
as much
he
as
overheard.
I overheard. Yeah.
Yeah. He said the man said he and 2 others had been driving down Smollett Street when they saw Bronwynne standing in the street. He said the guy in the back said, "Quick, go around the back, and if she's there when we come back, we'll grab her and have some fun," the witness said. Oh, what a hoot. He said the man then recounted the events which led up to Bronwynne's murder. He never once
God.
wavered in his story. He never backtracked, the witness said. It was something you couldn't have come up with. He was reliving it. He was bragging.
That's disgusting.
Sometime after the incident, he was shown a picture of Kevin Newman and identified him as the man in the pub.
Who did? Sorry, this
Witness, Voldemort.
witness X.
So Voldemort
Yeah.
overheard someone bragging,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
then he was shown a
And then-
photo, and it was
Yep.
the
But did
pedophile.
witness X go to the authorities at the time? Or is this something that came out much later?
That was a
yeah,
while later, wasn't it?
yeah, so this came out as part of the inquest, so the 2021 inquest.
Okay.
Yeah,
So he'd heard it a long time before that.
correct.
And then he just thought, I might mention it now, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could be that,
Is that
sometimes...
right?
What?
He heard it years and years later, or he heard it
No,
close
so
to
in
the
the 80s he'd overheard it.
Yeah.
But it could...
far out, and
But
then
it
he didn't
could
say
be-
anything. He didn't come forward.
No, but he may have done, because we've heard plenty of times where, evidence goes missing or someone
Yeah.
doesn't.
And in this, you've said that evidence has gone
Correct.
missing too.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
right.
Or no one
can't be-
followed up on the lead.
that's right. Yeah.
You might have
exactly.
called it in. All right.
Yeah, okay.
We won't,
Yeah. We don't know. We don't know.
We won't
Okay.
persecute this person.
But no, and also depending on how it played out, he might have reported it but not known who it was.
True. Yeah. Okay.
True, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's a strange
Well,
one.
he just was ignored at that point in time.
Possibly. The witness said he was left petrified and tried to leave the pub without the men realising he had overheard their conversation. On the final day of the inquest, the brother of Colin Newey broke down in tears as he gave evidence. Peter Newey repeatedly apologised and was asked by Miss Dowling why he was upset. So remember, Peter is the one who was supposed to be picked up from the hospital because
Yeah,
Colin...
but he didn't show up.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so he was crying because he said, "I'm sorry, Colin, with what's happened. I just don't believe. No, I'm sorry," he said. So he couldn't really articulate his thoughts, but I think he's trying to say he can't believe that
You were involved in raping
you were
and
involved.
murdering
Correct.
a person.
Yeah. So Miss Dowling said 3 men have died. The opportunities for people to tell what they know are running out, and this may be the last opportunity you have to say what you know, she said. She said, now that Colin is gone, is there anything you can now tell the coroner that you might know? Mr. Newey apologises again. I don't believe what I've heard through the cases and the inquest that Colin could have done this, he said. I apologise to everyone.
I don't think he did it, but I
You're
apologise to
confusing
everyone.
me, Paul.
Yeah.
I am.
Look,
No,
I know
not you,
you're
Paul.
not.
Was
And
it Paul or Peter?
And
That-
Paul.
This
Peter?
is Peter.
This is Poiter. This is
Poiter.
Poiter.
Not to be confused with Poiter. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
so you're confusing me, Peter. Are you saying you're sorry because he was involved, or sorry because you don't think he was involved?
You know how people go, my God, I can't believe they did that?
Yeah.
It's probably in that context more so than...
Okay, I don't.
Yeah, so
it's not that I don't believe he did it. I can't believe he did it.
Yeah, I'm convinced that he did it. I just don't believe
Can't
it.
believe it.
Like,
Okay.
God, it's
Okay.
unbelievable. I think it must be more in that context. Mr. Newey agreed that his brother could be physically and sexually violent and said he had suspected at some point that his brother may have had some involvement in their cousin's murder,
But I can't believe it.
but didn't press him on
I
it.
didn't want to say it. Yeah.
So despite the fact that there was no one convicted of the murder of Bronwynne Richardson, the third inquest hopefully had two benefits: to clear the names of previous people named in the investigation, and the very real benefit of delivering some degree of closure for the Richardson family. Fiona Hume said the family expected the court's findings. Death may silence the monsters, but it hasn't silenced the truth, she said. Hume also condemned that the violence her sister suffered still continues today. Even in the modern day, what happened to her continues to happen, she said. I think that if anything, she would like to not be forgotten. So that's in terms of Bronwynne. And if you think about, some of the things that have happened between that sort of 2019 through to 2021, there's a whole lot of that Me Too movement, a lot more, the society views have changed quite a lot. And people are very vocal about speaking up about these things, whereas perhaps in the past it wasn't spoken about as much. So that, my friends, is the story of Bronwynne Richardson. And I guess more so just how long, I think that's the point I wanted to make, that, for the family, obviously, terrible what happened to Bronwynne, but these things to just go on and on and on and on and on must be so traumatic for the family,
everyone is involved. Yeah.
and the nasty people who did it, who were arrested and got
So
off.
who do you think did it?
Yeah. Can you tell me what you think? Yeah.
I think Newey for sure, and I think Mad Max.
Can I ask a question?
Mad
Clarky?
Max.
Who do you think was in how many people do you think were in the car at the outset, though?
Well, so they said that there were 4.
Yeah.
A witness saw 4. I would probably think more so 3.
Okay.
Because they've said that there's the 3 who were involved, and I think that there's probably 2 at least who were involved in the raping and murder. I'm not sure if it was all 3 of them who did that, but I think Newey and Mad Max were definitely involved in that. Whether Kevin Newman was, I'm not sure, because he's the one bragging in the pub, right? And I'm guessing that he didn't do it. That probably was with them and saw it.
God.
Yeah, so
is he alive or is he dead?
They're all dead.
All dead. Yeah.
He's dead too.
Yeah. It's also interesting that the third inquest points the finger at 3 dead people. I'm assuming that's purely based on evidence, but
fairly telling that they think they're the 3 people who did it. Yeah. Well, I'm ready for sentencing.
Go hard. You didn't muck around.
Well, no, I don't know why, but maybe because it's a bit of a Murray River story, right? And so I'm thinking about the topography of Australia, and I'm thinking about the world that we live in, perhaps not you, Carla, as in, I don't know if, I know you've got termite mounds over in WA, but I'm thinking more about a bull ant nest. And I'm thinking these 3 gentlemen might need to be, staked out over some bull ant nests, because if you've ever been bitten by a jumping jack or even a standard old bull ant, it's very uncomfortable. It's very painful. And I'd like to think that Bronwynne died quickly, but I think that probably didn't happen. And I think that her last however many hours were horrific and shouldn't have happened. She was a person on the cusp of the greatness of her life. There was absolutely, no one should have their promise taken away like that, their life's promise. And so I think these three gentlemen, because I'm not really sure, but I'm going to say the three gentlemen that you think and the police think are responsible for this, Mad Max, Nui, and who was the third one?
Kevin Newman.
Kevin Newman.
Puppy.
Oh, Puppy. I think
Yeah.
anyone with such an innocuous bloody nickname needs to be staked out on a series of large Belant mounds, nests, and then someone come along and shove a whole lot of, spades and stuff into the Belant nest to really wind them up and then run away, and the Belants can do their work on these men because it will be very, very painful and very uncomfortable, and I think it suits kind of the region as well. So I'm going for a very natural sentence for these chaps.
An uprising.
Yeah.
Of the
Ouchie.
ants.
Oh, my God. Have you ever been bit by a Belant? I have once.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Only once?
Just one. Yeah, one jumping jack, and I felt so sick.
Jumping
They
jacks.
are nasty.
They're evil.
Nasty.
And they're
Yeah,
only
yeah.
little too.
Tiny little black things. But once I got bitten by one, I've avoided them like the plague. And maybe some march flies can get in there too. while they're at it.
yes.
Up at Eldon, I killed quite a few because it's a lot of mud because we've had a lot of rain and got floods. So the marchies are up, and I've had to smack a few of those, but they are nasty too. So maybe some marchies can get in there too.
Yeah, you'd have to handcuff them or something because march flies are easy to kill. Once they
They
land,
are. Oh, no, they're staked out. They're tied to stakes over Belant nests so the march flies can bite them at will. And so can the and we've got to fire up the Belants.
Yeah.
They don't just attack for no reason. So we've got to fire them up, and then they can just go for hell for leather.
Why don't you just shove one of the spades up there, Clacker?
Oh, well, no, I'm not going that far.
Okay.
I'll reserve that for you.
Asking for a friend.
That's my sentence, yes.
Yeah. Swanee, have you got one?
Kind of. I don't quite know where to end. I know where I want to start, so perhaps you guys can give me some advice. But the thing that sort of really bothers me about this is, and I think that, I'm sure that Schmitty will be able to understand it, is as a young girl, like as a 17-year-old, the thought of having a group of men approach you and abduct you is about as bad as it gets. I can't begin to tell you. I think every woman listening to this would have had a sense at some point of feeling ill at ease or that something could go wrong very quickly.
Yep.
And to have that, happen, especially if it was someone that she knew, like if it was her second cousin or whatever else, because I would assume that, if he'd been in trouble, it wouldn't be news to her that he wasn't a good guy. Do you know what I mean?
No, but you wouldn't assume a relative was going to do that to you.
No, but I could imagine the energy and how unsettling. She would have known quite quickly that she was in trouble, right? Yeah. And that the terror that's associated with that's what I want to be able to have them feel. And I just don't know how you make a man feel like a 17-year-old who has been abducted by a group of men. How do I flip it so that they have that feeling?
That terror kind of
That's
thing.
what I want them to have to feel. So they'd have to be on their own. They wouldn't be with anybody else. But who would terrify a man to the same extent that that poor girl felt? Because before you get to the point where she's been raped and murdered, I know that she knows that it's all going to go terribly wrong.
Go awfully bad.
And that's what I want their punishment to be, that knowing this has all gone wrong. There's no good side for me. This is all, my life is all but over.
I'm not getting out of this.
No, they're going to hurt me. They're really going to hurt me.
Could it be that they go to jail with Bubba and his friends and get abducted in jail every day and raped by Bubba and his friends? Remember the Shawshank Redemption and there's the girls? And what happened to Andy Dufresne? A little bit like that, where it'd just be... Because that would be pretty terrifying, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I need to...
Well, it's about taking all of their power away.
Correct.
And putting them in a position where they are physically overcome, so they can't fight back.
Yeah.
And I whether it's Bubba or putting them in a cell with BTK, Ed Kemper, other psychos that we've covered that are so terrifying because it's no holds bar. Like it's just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ed Kemper story, I was talking about the FBI agent who was there for half an hour and was, bluffing his way out of a cell, knowing that this man could have literally killed him like that. He's 6'9" giant.
Yeah.
There's no, you can't fight that man off. Like, if he wanted to kill you, he would.
You'd be dead.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we need to do. We need to change Ed's MO and just say, look, just do us a favour here, Eddie, and we'll pop you in here with these guys and you can teach them a lesson,
Because
the
there
whole
needs to be
dynamic
that
about how he thinks, but
the timing of it is what's crucial in terms of what I want and how I want the punishment to be delivered. Because between the time that she got in the car and then the time, I don't know, imagine
before it became apparent that she was going to die,
and then when she knows that what they're going to do to her, that's the bit. Because, like there are certain things that happen, and, we've covered all types of situations where people have been raped and murdered and whatever else. There are things that happen over a period of time. Sometimes things happen in an instant. This didn't happen in an instant. Everybody had a go, no doubt. She knew what was, all of that sort of stuff. It's the long, the suffering and, the being exposed to it. That when I hear of these crimes that happen to particularly young women and it's a group of guys, I just, it really, really upsets me.
I know. I just want to cut their dicks off. I really do. It's just like I'd leave them like that because, that's almost more painful. And by the way, I don't mean surgically. I mean just chop them off and let them bleed and deal with it and get infected and whatever and deal with a little stump forever because it is so horrendous. Oh, God, makes me so angry.
What if they got a job in a bag of dicks factory and every day their dick got chopped off.
BOD,
and then
BOD.
it started again and it's got chopped off and put into the bag. But it'd have to be cut off with a rusty implement.
Painful. Yeah. Oh, it's just awful. It's just it can't be sharp and clean and easy and quick. It's got to be like soaring
Prolonged.
and hacking and painful.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. God, I sound like a monster myself. But honestly, it's just so. As you say, Carla, the terror, and there's a point where you think, am I going to get through this? Like, are they all just going to rape me and I'm still going to get home and I'm just going to pretend this never happened? Yeah. And then, no, they're going to strangle me.
That you realise
they're going to kill me
too much
now.
damage has been done. Now they've got to get rid of me as well.
Or is there even that piece where
awful.
she just, through her head, just goes, oh, my God, just kill me.
It's possible, but
it's so bad what's happened that I just...
It's possible. I think, I've always taken the position of I'll fight whatever happens. But if I found out dead, that at least I knew I fought,
Yeah.
But I can't speak
skin
for
under your fingernails for sure.
Can't speak for anyone else. Yeah.
I think that what happens when I hear about, and I wasn't aware of this crime.
No, I heard this one.
It has so many similarities with other things I've heard, but I guess for me growing up, in New South Wales, there was Anita Cobby, who was, again, a beauty queen from the western suburbs of Sydney, who I think they'd taken off a train platform or something. I don't know. There is actually a mini-series, I think, very similar in the sense that it's just this beautiful girl snatched and treated so appalling. I think hers is possibly even worse because I think we know
more about what happened.
More about it. And so I can't say whether actually that's a really silly thing to say whether it's worse, but some of the detail there is just horrendous. And I've thought about looking at that at crime before, but I can't handle it because it happened at a time that was so instrumental in my development of who I was. I think it was in the 80s. So it was as I was becoming, a young adult, I think mid-80s. So I was probably about 12, 13 or something, and it had such a huge impact on me, that story. Terror. So when you started telling this story, it takes me straight to that thing of me going, oh, God, this was like one of my biggest fears as a young, and actually it probably for most women still would remain a big fear because it does still happen. It's just horrendous. Really not nice.
Off with their dicks.
Snatched. Off with their dicks.
Bag of dicks factory.
And then their fingers, just the tips of the fingers, and then a bit more and a bit more, maybe. Yeah. But it's just
shocking.
Awful.
The poor family.
These men who think they can do this. Many, oh, God. And they did get away with it.
Yeah.
That's
the hard bit.
That's the kicker, I reckon.
Correct. And that's where I think this one I struggle with, obviously what happened, but then we're left with this sort of family who, as you say, Shmi, it'll be 50 years this year since it happened.
And have
you know,
no
and nothing.
closure.
That's my entire lifetime. Do you know what I mean? It's just awful.
Mine too. Yeah. It's horrendous.
Yeah, the whole justice.
I think the police tried.
It has not prevailed.
The
has it?
family have very clearly made the point that the police have tried their best.
Yeah.
There's not been enough evidence, and perhaps the time period is part of the problem, being, in the 70s. But and I think you're right about the Me Too thing, and it's so wrong that we get to 2020, 2021 when we give a shit about violence against women. We should have given a shit about violence against women in the 70s. When you said she was a bit tarty, I was like, oh, my sphincter clenches at hearing that, because we've all been tarty. We all want to be sexy. Swanee and I used to go out in nightclubs looking like absolute tramps, but we had fun and we didn't expect to be raped for it, right? And we shouldn't expect to be raped for it or murdered. It's just so wrong. Sorry, I'm very angry now. So can you please sentence these people with a great deal of ardour and crossness?
I can try.
The crossness. The crossness is what's going to get him.
The bit.
I'm very cross.
Yes, I'm so cross. I think like I said, the bit that I struggle with is that, there's no justice at all.
Yeah.
And so, of course, what happened is horrific. And Carla, I think, your sentence around getting them to feel that terror that you would have felt, I think, is a really good one. Schmitty, I like the idea of the pain as well, because they just sound like they're just so dirty and,
indifferent nearly.
Like they are. That's it. They don't even care. And
just not really. They're not that bothered.
Was truly overheard bragging about this,
I don't even think doing time would bother them, because then they'd be with other like-minded people. It's kind of like, the people they'd hang out with if they could choose to. So I don't see that there's any.
What are you in for?
There's no real penalty with that.
Someone.
Tell me about it. Oh my God, what was she like? I could just imagine. They're just scum.
Yeah, and you think of Mad Max, who gets out of jail, catches a train to Albury to have lunch at the Coles Cafe, so that he can rape and murder someone the very day that he gets let out.
That's exactly right.
Gross. And then Newey, who's doing this, oh, look, there's my second cousin. Let's call her over so that we can abduct her and rape her.
I related to her. She's my family, and I think that's okay. Oh, God, you're beyond gross. You're the scum of the earth. You're a scumbag. Oh,
yeah, it's really quite sickening. So I don't know. I would almost be happy if they actually did get abducted themselves individually and have this whole thing
play out against them,
play out for them,
back on them, because the whole thing of you have no right to do this. There is no place for this. The fact that they've got arrested and got off, all this sort of stuff, where they were probably thinking they were so good because they did it and got away with it. It just makes me feel sick in the stomach. So, I'd be quite okay. And Schmitty, that's why I was kind of going with the putting them on the shovel pole. Yeah, and I think it should be some, I don't know, like there's also stories of some of the gay hate crimes that have happened around the world. And almost, the way that those kids have been treated and murdered and whatever.
So debasing and
I could almost go a little bit of that for these guys as well, because they really are,
arseholes. All right.
Can we end on something funny? Because
well, that was a real dark one. Yeah. And nice to go local.
Oh, how about, sorry. So remember Mr. Brown, who didn't participate in Murder, Lies and Alibis. He was filmed telling the crew to go away, saying, I've had 46 years of this shit.
Yes.
He wasn't one that was found guilty or, suspected of doing it. Imagine having that hanging over your head for 46 years as well.
I don't know if I feel like he's a victim.
I think imagine if he didn't do anything and
Yeah.
these other people did, and they're not clearing his name of it at all. They're going sweet as some other suckers
Yeah,
in
okay.
the spotlight.
Yeah. He's Andy Dufresne.
What a change of your life. So,
another victim in this story. Yeah.
I think so.
All right,
sorry.
well.
I was going to end on something funny, but it wasn't funny.
At all.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Clarky. That was one that I didn't anticipate, so that was a good one. I have never heard that story before. I'm very sorry for Bronwynne's family, and I hope that something somewhere comes up that they can actually find who actually did it, even if it's posthumously, and so the family gets some closure. Yeah.
That would be
Otherwise,
nice.
it's chopping dicks off and ants' nests and,
Bubba.
yeah, great. All right. Well, as we say every week, miss you already.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
On that happy
Bye.
note.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.